and today we'll be looking at governance at the grassroots level. And we have an expert who will be joining us from US, no other person than Mr. Chooks. Eleanor is a community organizer, a mobilizer, and is a public affair coach and equally a performance coach too. But before we go to Chooks, Chooks is listening to us now from US. Oga Chooks, good afternoon, Nigeria time.
Good morning from Washington D.C.
Okay, good morning from US. But permit me, just hold the line. Let's quickly dash down to River State. If you are checking internet now, you know that River is a bit raining, or is activity is going on in River State, but not the one that will make us to be proud as in Nigeria, whether here or at the international scene. But it's just something that we want to, which I will equally ask you too, the way you played your politics outside Nigeria. Just permit me, Oga Chooks, I will just continue conversation just in 5 minutes. Joining us from Port Harcourt, live from Port Harcourt, through the phone, is no other person than the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Communication, River State, Mr. Joe Johnson. Oga Joe Johnson, good afternoon and welcome to VOP 90.3.
Good afternoon, Lagos, and good afternoon, Chooks from the US.
All right. Now,
Good afternoon.
Okay. Oga Joe Johnson, I just saw a news, if you go to the internet now, that the number one citizen of River State, Sir Fubara, have been locked out of the assembly complex where you have a meeting today. Tell us the update. How true is it?
It is very correct. You know, the Supreme Court directed that we should represent the 25 budgets, and the governor communicated to the State Assembly through the Speaker and the Clerk of the House. And surprisingly, we got to the place and the governor was locked out. We were not allowed access. And what we gathered was that the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory was the one who directed that we should not be given access.
Maybe they are not aware that the governor is there.
Say it again.
Maybe they are not aware that it is the governor that is there.
They were fully communicated. They knew. We gave them time of our visit. It's today, Wednesday, 12th March, and by 10 a.m. And we were there, but the people at the gate, citing the governor's convoy, locked the access gate and then scampered, So that was how we ended not being able to present the budget as was directed by the Supreme Court judgment.
I don't understand. Maybe those security personnel there, they are not aware that it is the governor.
The governor is very conspicuous. If the governor's presence is anywhere, you will know. The governor had a scar with insignia on and then the number of persons that were there is enough to tell you that the governor was there. They were fully communicated. We are going to publish the letter that we wrote to them and all the telephone calls that the governor had. That we cannot. That this other one we can say. I have an emergency on hand which I must address. I'm trying to push narratives to the papers. If you can excuse me, perhaps give me another appointment.
Okay. We don't want to just get the correct. Thank you very much. We pray for the people in Rivers State. God will continue to protect every one of you, protect the governor, and peace must reign in Rivers State and peace must reign in Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, that is just that. We just have to get that information from. I don't know. I think let's quickly come. It's unfortunate that this is we're supposed to be discussing. Although it's still issue of governance, I think we still have Mr. Chooks with us from US. Hello, Oga Chooks.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, thank you very, very much. I know that short bite you get in. That is the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Communication, River State. A governor of a state, they have a meeting in order for him to present, in obedience to the Supreme Court's judgment. He was shocked that they lock a governor of a state out of a assembly complex. It may be it's possible that we copy this from US or let's start because they say our democracy is patterned to the US democratic system.
Thank you. Thank you for having me once again, and greetings to your audience. Certainly, let me begin by saying that as an old Port Harcourt boy, River State indigene,
Ah,
yes, I know the governor, and it is a shameful thing that the level of impunity and abuse of power and privilege in Nigeria is unprecedented. But as I've often said when I come to your show, Nigeria is copying American democracy just in name only. They're not practicing it, and I don't believe you're practicing any form of democracy at all. If you take the incident that Commissioner Johnson just spoke about in Port Harcourt, the governor is the CEO of a state. Can you imagine Dangote going into his refinery or any of his businesses and being locked out by his own staff? So that's the challenge we have. So the governor of any state in a democracy is the chief executive of that state. The legislators do make the policies, but they have no right whatsoever, especially if the governor was invited and a meeting was pre-planned. So, but that's my take on the Port Harcourt issue. But go ahead with your questions, sir.
okay. But what will that's your state now, because you are there, you are equally concerned. What will you advise the Nigeria government, all of us that are in Nigeria? Because without peace, we cannot move forward. We cannot move forward without peace. What will you advise the stakeholder? Is it the president? Is it the senators? Is it the honorable member of House of Assembly in Rivers State, senators? That I think people should value peace. Or do we need to take excursion to Gaza or Ukraine before we learn?
So, very good question and very good point. I think the most fundamental challenge, and I'm going to refer of today, is that class called civics needs to be taken seriously, and it needs to be taught in all tiers of the educational system in Nigeria. What you are seeing today that is manifested, whether you're looking at the Akpabio Natasha side of the argument, or you're looking at the River State governor versus the mayor of Abuja saga, what you're looking at is a direct outcome of where the citizens have not been educated on their roles as citizens. So civics is a very, very critical class to take, and they should start it early, because the more you learn it, the better it becomes. So the advice would be that there are tiers of government, right? You have a federal, you have a state, you have a local government. And at each level of those tiers of government, there are also hierarchies, right? So in a democracy, of course, you have your well-known three branches of government: the executive, in this case, the governor; you have your legislative, in this case, the House of Assembly and Senate; and then, of course, you have your judiciary, which are the courts. Those three, joined with two others that we never talk about often, which is the financial sector as well as the military sector, all five come together to constitute the body of any governance apparatus that you want to put up. So what is happening, at least what I see and read, is that people in different hierarchical levels of the government want to take onto themselves roles that have not been assigned to them, and specifically roles that they do not have rights to even engage in. So, but if you recall my last appearance on your show, I did say that sometimes it's because that some of the other areas are not acting. So in this case, for example, if the Supreme Court has rendered an opinion, why would another of the government ignore that opinion? Or if the lower courts have authorized the police to do something, why would the police ignore the order of the court? So until we can come to that position where all three branches of the government can respect their various roles and actually engage in doing the work that they were specifically assigned to do, you will continue to see the chaos that you're seeing now. But the advice here would be to follow the rule of law. So if the governor was there under the direction or of the Supreme Court ruling, they should return back and follow the due process.
Now, let's come to, which we are still coming to where we are today, where it is going on in Rivers State. We're looking at with you, having conversation with you on the role of the grassroots governance in Nigeria. And at least even in the political system, you start from your house to your ward to local government to state to federal level in many parts of the world, including Nigeria. What do you think we can do so that we have the government will be the people will be very, very sophisticated at the grassroots level, so that nobody should be able to take them for granted? Because what you will be here later now is they already mentioning it, power from above, Abuja instruction. They sometimes get instruction from is it Washington, the White House, on what happened in your communities. That's why I say, they say that our democratic system is a pattern to your own democratic system.
Yeah, so good question. Regarding grassroots, so it goes back again to those civics lessons. I must say that the grassroots movement all over the world has been responsible for significant social and political change in history, going back. The most notable examples are the ones that you see with Martin Luther King Jr. here in the US back in the civil rights days, or if you want to look at it from the Mahatma Gandhi movement in India. So those are your pure grassroots movement that secured massive change, right? Nelson Mandela, sure, he did go to jail in South Africa, but the movement that he and his colleagues created is the reason why South Africa is the way South Africa is today compared to other African nations. So grassroots movements are very, very important. The challenge for Nigeria and the challenge for the Nigerian youth or the Nigerian grassroots activists is in the following areas. One of the tools that oppressors, oligarchs, dictators, and I'm using those three terms, choicely. One of the tools that they typically use is to offer you something in return in order to shut you up. And the challenge in Nigeria has been that people often engage or call themselves grassroots activists, but then the moment their own very oppressors offer them anything, and I'm speaking about stomach infrastructure here.
At 10-7.
Offered anything, all of a sudden they shut up. So to be a real grassroots, to be a movement within the grassroots, you don't accept anything from your oppressors. You don't accept anything from those who are making things difficult for you, because that is the number one tool they will use to pull you down. So if the Nigerian grassroots movement want to take seriously engaging the politicians, engaging their elected officers, engaging their leaders, they must come with a passion for whatever it is that is originally motivating them. So if the motivation, so the question is why? Why do you want to get into, why do you want to become a part of the grassroots? So if your motivation, if your why has to do with good governance, then don't turn around and allow the bad governor or the bad governor, and I'm not talking about the governor per se, but that person that you are now trying to change. You don't go and start accepting anything from them. So the moment you accept a bag of rice or whatever it is that they typically offer them, you've compromised yourself. And once you've compromised yourself, now they own you. And now they will dictate how you respond. So that's the first thing you do in any grassroots movement, is not to focus on your original mission and not to go there with the intent of, acquiring or benefiting yourself in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, in Nigeria's scenario, in respect of the grassroots people, the citizen of Nigeria, anytime I'm looking at some scenario like what is going on in Rivers State now, it only take me back to my victimology class. That in Nigeria is as if the citizen become like a victim, and secondly, the prey becomes, okay, now that you are a victim, this opportunity for me to inflict more pain in you. Then if I see that maybe you may give up, then I'll give you some energy, which is maybe if it is Nigeria, we'll call agege bread with a 500 naira, maybe for it, the person to buy mineral to get energy to stay again. Then they will continue to inflict that energy. People are human beings like them. We all have one head, two hands, two legs. The difference is just opportunity. They have opportunity. These people did not have opportunity. Hence the oppression. I don't know the kind of which of the musicians we are going to call to help us to blow a trumpet or sing a song for them that this is not right.
Yeah, so in history, and if you go back all the way to the French Revolution, for example, the oppressors have never willingly given up that right or freedom. And the Nigerian leaders, whether at the federal, state, or local government levels, are fully aware that if the people rise, that they themselves have no power. However, what seemed to be happening, and this is often more evident in Africa, all over Africa, is that those in power, because they know that you're hungry, you're tired, you're stressed, they often play on that notion, making sure that you don't then wise up to begin to challenge them in the things that they're doing wrong. So as you can see here, of course, we have Donald Trump as our president, and he acts like a typical African dictator. But he also knows that there is a limit, because the people will rise if he pushes them, and the people will respond if he challenges them. So until we get to that stage in Nigeria where the people can confront their leaders, and when I say confront here, I'm not talking about a violent confrontation, I'm talking about a dialogue or debate where there is a clear message from the people that your impunity, your mismanagement, your corruption will not stand, they will back off. And I can assure you that the Nigerian leaders are aware. They just know that the people are not going to rise against them, therefore they continue.
No, you can't say so, because was it Chidera, the last Edbank government protest last year? The people rose up that say the suffering is too much. Some of them that were arrested were charged for treason, which I will now come again. That what is now how do you get it a bit right that the security agency there, they don't follow, when you say professionalism, they don't follow the narrative from the political leaders or politicians. They follow the rule of law, they follow the constitution, they follow the code of conduct of those their agencies. I can bet you it's possible tomorrow you may just hear that the governor of Rivers State has been impeached, and the police may just come and say we'll come to enforce the law. And the question will now be, which of the law are you enforcing? And that will just stay. There's nothing anybody can do about it. So how do you put money that the policing agency in America are to a good percentage are political, but here is sometimes some security agency are more politically correct than politicians.
So, very good point. But I would like to add, though, that even our police system here in the United States can be brutal. They do the same things that you see the Nigerian police do. They can. The only thing they don't do is open bribery and, those types of things. But when it comes to the brutality, when it comes to not totally protecting the citizenry, they do that here as well. But the difference, which I think is your question, is how do we obtain justice and how do we enforce the rule, the law? That is done by making sure that, on one hand, the citizens are fully aware of their rights. So in other words, when a policeman walks up to me or comes to my house now and knocks on my door, he's not going to come with the assumption that his uniform is going to let him into my house. I know the law. I am the one that's going to ask him a question. I will ask him what he's doing here and why he's here. And he knows I know the law. Therefore, because he knows I know the law, he's also going to be careful in what he says and how he approaches me. So going back to that civics lesson that I said earlier in the opening, what is happening in Nigeria is that the leaders are aware of the law, but they know that the people are not aware of the law. In other words, when I say law here, I'm talking about their rights, their fundamental rights. So referring to the protest youngsters you mentioned from last year. So if that had happened in the US, here are the things that would have happened. For each of those youngsters that were locked up, there will be hungry lawyers. And I'm saying hungry lawyers, uninvited, but these are lawyers. These are legal luminaries who would invite themselves and sue the state on behalf of each of those kids. And those lawyers are not going there for contracts and they're not going there for handouts. They will throw the book, the proverbial book, on the law enforcement. And because the law enforcement apparatus know that these lawyers are around and will challenge them legally, they themselves are careful. Two, when the case now gets to the court, and when I say get to the court here, I'm talking between 48 and 72 hours. We're not talking about 48 and 72 weeks, which is what I typically say in Africa, right? We're talking about hours. So when the case finally gets in front of a judge, the judge also tries to be impartial. We have political judges. In fact, we have judges who run for office here. Some judge positions here in the US are actual political positions where the people voted for them to become judge. So when you go in front of the judge, they will set aside their partisanship and will focus on the tenets of the law. And they will use that. So yeah, sometimes the police will win and most times the people will win. Going back to the Donald Trump example I was just sharing with you. When he came in, yes, all the things he is saying he has done, we that are on the ground know he has not accomplished anything because the courts are now blocking him one by one. He's not, if you notice, he's not talking about immigration as much because they blocked all of that for him. He's not talking a whole lot, even the things he's going
and
saying.
Sorry for cutting her. And those judges, they sleep in their home, go to their offices.
Yes.
No charge for corruption. No breaking of their doors.
We have a few that are corrupt, but our judges here don't have security guards. They drive on the street like you and I. They are part and parcel of the community. So they go home and they sleep well at night. Yeah, they may drink a little ogogoro to fall asleep, but nonetheless, their judgment are impartial. They look at the case, right? The right, the wrong, and they will render judgment. And now when they render judgment, there is now the enforcement part of the law now kicks in. Right? So once the judgment has been entered, I think the last time, if you recall, I told you we don't have one police. We have many police systems, right? So you can have a state police who is one that guards, let's say, the governor. But that state police is not the one that's going to enforce the order from the court. The court has their own police. They have their own court system. They have their own police. We call them U.S. Marshals. They are charged with enforcing the law, and they have more rights over the local police. So there is that check and balance, but in Nigeria, a lot of the checks and balance are missing. And because they are missing, the ordinary person on the street also being unaware of his or her rights, is now not able to challenge the police to say you're wrong.
You cannot even tell a police that you are wrong, except the person want to collect hot slap or find himself in in either Ikoyi prison or Kirikiri prison or Badagry prison. That one is a bit very, very tough. I want to tell our very, very esteemed listener that we still have Mr. Chuck Eleonor with us from all the way from United States of America. He's a performer coach, a public speaker, and a community mobilizer. And we are looking at the role of a grassroots government in Nigeria. And this is still security, safety, and the people's right. Because you mentioned the security, if you mentioned police there, we have a case in our hand. I want to see again if that kind of case issue can happen in America. And if it happens, is it going to be that the authority will just keep silent, especially when the person is from a very poor home? We have a case. There's a police station here called Pedro Police Station here in Lagos, and 2 guys were arrested, and they grant them bail, and they asked them to report back as at April last year, and they report back. Till tomorrow, as I'm talking to you now, the police cannot give account of those 2 boys. They didn't say they are in any prison. In fact, they are just looking at the poor woman who is a widow and see what can you do. The authority, everybody is just looking. What kind of premium do you put in life in America that maybe if person is not highly placed, his matter is non and void? Or can this thing happen in any police formation in America, that people should lose inside police? 2 individuals, younger and 20-something years, should lose inside police facility?
Yeah, that's a very, very sad story that you just told, and my heart goes out to the widow, to the woman. Yes, people do disappear in police stations here, but we have what is called a detainee locator. So that's the name of the law.
Detainee locator.
Yes, so they have them, right? And they have different ones. And I can tell you, for example, the prison has their own, the police has their own, the border, the immigration people at the border have their own, the local county jail, right? What you call police barrack, right? They have their own. So when somebody disappears here, all you have to do, and this is again where the lawyers, those who went to school to study law, this is where they need to step in. I can guarantee you, you will see lawyers who will rise up to say, wow, this is inhumane, this is preposterous, and they will volunteer their time. Or there are departments, there are places, there are organizations, NGOs that you can go to for support. They will log into each of those locators. And all you need is the full name of the person, if you know their birth date, if they are foreigners, if you know what country they come from. And of course, you know, America, everybody in America is a foreigner, except the Native Americans. So everybody here is a foreigner. So if you know their country of origin, you put that in. And more importantly, everybody here, if you are an American citizen, you have something called a social security number, which is equivalent to some of your national ID type numbers. Or if you're not a citizen, you have something called an alien registration number. That number is automatic, and all of them are digitized. So if you have it, you can go into any of those systems. As I told you, even the CIA have their own, right? So you log in and you search for the person. And I'm telling you, within 24 to 42 hours, you will find that person. Now, what typically happens, and this is what I think happens in Nigeria, is when somebody is booked, that is, you're taken behind that police counter, they do not update that, you know, Mr. Joe or Mr. John or Miss Jane has been booked. And because they did not record it, now that person is not, there's no official record that person was ever there, which means if they transfer you from Alaba to
Alagbo,
Alagbo to Ikoyi, now there is no record showing that transfer has occurred. So yes, people can literally get lost within the system. Even here, it happens. But because of the enforcement arm of our laws here, it makes it almost impossible, right? So if you go back several years ago when the young man, George Floyd, was accidentally killed, he was killed. Initially, the police presented it as, oh, no, it was just a routine police activity. But because there is an enforcement arm that challenged them, forced them to produce the video, forced.
When you say force, those an arm forcing or begging the other people to come or force them to provide evidence.
Yeah, so it is another arm of the law, right? So you have your police who do your regular traffic, your regular citizen checkup, but then there's another branch of the police who actually enforce those laws, right? So even, for example, if I commit a crime, the police now has the force of law on their side to, penalize me. But what if the police is the one violating that law? So if the police is violating that law, there is another branch that investigates that police and make sure that the citizen whose right has already been abused, is now exonerated. So that's when I say the force, that's what I'm referring to. So there are other agencies whose job it is to police the police. Whereas in Nigeria, the police has complete immunity and act with complete impunity. So that's the problem you're having in Nigeria. So now, I can repeat that. They have complete immunity and act with complete impunity. Wow. And there's no person to check them. Even the politicians do some of these. If there's nobody to check them, and there's nobody to prosecute them, and there's nobody to enforce the prosecution, then you have complete chaos in the system.
Now, let me take you briefly down to France. If you look at what is going on in Nigeria, there's something that the president of France, Cameron, will never try, because he will check the repercussion of trying that from the citizen of France. But in Nigeria, because you are a community mobilizer or organizer, what do you think we can do that if a governor want to make any policy or make any pronouncement, a senator want to make any policy or make any pronouncement, the president want to make any policy of any pronouncement, the IGP want to make any policy or pronouncement, it will check the pulse of the pulse of the citizens and say, I don't want the trouble from these people. But in Nigeria, you can just wake up, an announcement is made, everybody is straight enforcement, whether you like it or not. That is the order. So what do you think we can do so that we as Nigeria, we should not continue, nobody should continue to be using us like a placebo in implementing any policy?
So, good point. The citizens themselves need to be organized, and it should not be one organization, right? They need to be organized. They need to be active, and when you have the numbers in terms of population, right, then the leaders know that they have multiple avenues that they now have to contend with in order to take any action. But when they're just dealing with one or a ragtag small group, then all of a sudden they can quickly overwhelm that small group with their own political power. So what needs to be done is that we need to have enough grassroots activist groups whose focus is strictly on pointing out to government that we are not going to relent. We're not going to back down. Yes, we're not going to be violent, right? So you notice Mandela was still in jail, but yet the people were still protesting. So whereas in Nigeria, if Mandela goes to jail, the group will disperse. So there needs to be enough energy. There needs to be a dog in the fight for whatever it is they are doing. So that's why I said the first thing you need to find out from the activist is, what is your why? What is motivating you to do what you're going to do? You look at, take example of the recent case of Dele Farotimi, right? So if he does not back down, guess what? The other side will now realize, okay, this person is ready to do mano a mano. Now, I hear you that you also have to have the wherewithal, right? to be able to do so. Dele has a voice, he can speak, he has a network, he knows the rule of law, he knows what buttons to press. Sure, the average market woman or market man doesn't know those things, therefore are not able to challenge. So that's the example right there. So if the average Nigerian can learn the rule of law, can learn what are the things that are available to them, and then the next step is now begin to coach, especially those on the judiciary side, on making sure that those laws are enforced when it comes before them. Then you will see, within the next generation, you will see a complete change in the Nigerian population.
But maybe we hope so, because, for example, when you look at my very, very wonderful and intelligent and brilliant friend, Omoyele Sowore, and if you listen to some people, they will say Sowore is only looking for trouble up and down. And if you look at some of the questions he's asking, he is, if he can decide to just be in US without coming to Nigeria, but to some extent, just asking a question that we can do better than what we are doing. And Nigeria is a very wonderful, lovely place, blessed. We have all potential that we can think of, but it's the same Nigeria. We say, oh, it's as if this guy doesn't have anything to do. So what do you think we can do? Which kind of water will you subscribe that we should drink, that we should know that all of us, we have equal stakeholder. We're all stakeholder in this nation, Nigeria. Nobody is more Nigeria than anyone. Even you guys that are outside, we're all Nigeria together. It is just maybe because of the stress, the way that what is going on here that makes some of you to step out of this system. And if those things are properly taken care of, you will be willing to come back to Nigeria and equally put your own quota on how this country can actually be at par with a country like Australia, US, where you are, and United Kingdom, or even better than them.
Very, very correct. So Nigeria has the potential to actually be better than any of those places you mentioned. And yes, certainly those of us abroad and many that are even inside Nigeria have the capability and capacity to help bring the change. I think what is missing is that platform where people can express and be able to follow through end to end how to effect those changes. So until we can come up with an instrument, I know there's been proposal going all the way back to Obasanjo administration to create a state police and separate the state police from the federal police. Until we get to that stage where, because when the governance is closer to the people, then they then see the value in protecting their own people. But so long as you have somebody so far away trying to legislate or trying to pontificate on what is happening in Zamfara or in Port Harcourt or in Warri, for example, because they are not local and they're not close to the ground, they're not going to see how it is pinching. That's why in political science, they'll tell you all politics is local. So until we can narrow down that cadre of leadership to boil it down to a closer knit group locally, it's going to be hard. So that's why I still feel that NGOs, the grassroots movement, is the best way to go. But the grassroots movement should not be established or even created for the sole purpose of, let's go to Aso Rock to chop rice. That's not the purpose of an NGO. Right? So the purpose of an NGO is to create that awareness, sensitize the people, and continuously educate the people that these are your rights. I'll give you one example and I'll pause. In certain parts of Africa, Ghana is an example, where young bride, the bride wife, it took years of desensitizing the community before mothers and fathers began to realize that it was wrong for them to give away their young child, which is not even up to 15 years into marriage. So we cannot rely on just the leaders. The leaders are already busy. They have so many things. A typical leader in Nigeria, they have 10,000 things pulling at them. But the citizens themselves must also arm themselves with the information and the education. And when I say education, I'm not talking about going to school. I'm talking about knowing, right? If you take a typical Muslim or a typical Christian, they don't need to go to school to read the Bible or the Quran. But by educating themselves in the contents of those two books, now they know when they are imam or they are pastor or they are Khalifa is saying something wrong. They know it's not in that book anymore. So likewise, average Nigerians need to know the instruments of their own fundamental rights and what the limits of the laws are for their leaders so that you can challenge them. So if you don't know that, then when they tell you to shut up, then you don't even know why they're telling you to shut up.
Now, let look at it because time is equally not on our side. Let's look at this. I have been working on some research, let me call it that way, going to some police formation, and I was shocked this week. What I found out was if someone has been, those that are police officer now since like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years downward, they haven't been able to, nobody pay them they go leave. Let me put it that, speak our local language. They have been going to their normal annual leave. But for more than 20 years, no police officer, especially from the rank and file they call them, none of them have collected their leave allowance. None of them. And I believe at the upper level, this money has been budgeted for this. But it's only God knows. Maybe the person that is pressing the money to transfer the allowance to them since 20 years ago, there's network problem, and the money is here to get to the account. Or the person that is doing it is on study leave, maybe in any part of the world over 20 years ago, is here to come back to actually do that transfer. And the question I want to ask you is this: discussing this kind of issue on another platform, one of my show on another platform, someone was asking me, say, Joseph, what's your business? If they no pay police leave allowance for the past 20 years, what is your business? And I was shocked. Yes, I didn't have no member of my family that is a police officer. Not that my family are so buoyant to say maybe they can't be a police, but I'm just saying so. So the question is, why is it that everybody wants to just mind his business and we are not helping ourselves? This is not how a community or a society is being wrong.
True. So that is equally sad. While we have a lot of issues and a lot of problems against the police and or the leaders in Nigeria, not treating them well in their retirement phases of life is also unfair, right? So if we come to this table of conversation with equity, likewise, if a police officer have served their time and done their job, whether good or bad, when they retire, they need to be rewarded with whatever was promised to them when they were hired. My assumption is that when you enter the police force, as you train, they do tell you you're going to get pension or that you're going to get some type of stipend or funding when you go on leave. So for such person who works day and night under the police force to go on leave or go on retirement and not receive the monies that they were promised, that is very, very sad. That's unfortunate. But the truth is, by not paying them or by not giving them those things, we now return back to the same thing we were talking about previously, because all of these things are a cycle, right? So when you don't pay somebody who is in retirement, he or she is now going to go find ways of making money. And sometimes their attempts to find ways of making money may now no longer be in the legal avenue. They may resort to other methods of doing it, which in essence turns around and affects the system as well. So here we do have a retirement system. It's pretty straightforward. And as I told you, we have so many different types of police forces, but almost a single one of them, they all have pension funds. And where the pension is not even enough, for example, when the police officer dies on duty, the Are you there? Can you hear me?
I mean, I can hear you. I'm listening to you very well. Because
Okay,
I have two
yeah.
cases in that respect that I'm working on.
Okay. Yeah. So when the police officer dies on duty, even their spouse has a benefit that accrues to them because they know that their husband or their wife had sacrificed their life on duty. So I know there is a police pension in Nigeria, and I know there are some other means of creating income for them when they retire or even when they go on leave in terms of paid leave. So it goes back to that enforcement. Here we have a police union, and the duty of the police union is to look out for their members. And that police union usually will be the one to sue the police force. And I'm talking about the leadership of the police force.
I don't understand what you put in there. A police union will sue a police force. Is that not like dog eating dog?
No, that is like the older dog challenging the newer dog in the neighborhood, saying, "Oh boy, what are you doing here?" So because that's what's happening in Nigeria, where as you inflood the leadership, the upper echelon, right, with new blood in terms of new appointments, new IGPs, and all those things, right? They themselves want to do their own mago because I guarantee you there is a police fund. I've not researched it. After this call, I'll go take a look at it. I can guarantee that the Nigerian police has a police pension fund.
Yes, they have.
I don't know if it is funded, but somebody is collecting that money. Somebody is sitting on that money. And what we need is a group of other people who know how the police work. And this is where the police union now comes in. They know the inside workings of the police force. They should sue and force the leadership, the current leadership, to tell them or account for what is going on in that pension fund. Somebody's managing it. The pension fund is not inside somebody's pocket, right? It's probably sitting in a bank. A bank is managed. The bank can tell you how much is coming in and how much is going out and to whom. But unless you sue them, that information will never get public. It will never get publicized. So those are some of the challenges where I'm saying the citizens need to arm themselves with enough information to be able to challenge their leadership.
As we go in 90 seconds, what would be your advice? How do we start? You are a community mobilizer. You are a community organizer. Nigeria, we cannot continue this way. We can't continue this way. Because sometimes when you see things happening in Nigeria, your emotion, you have to find a way to manage your emotion, manage your psyche very well so that you don't have some issues. So how do you think the community, the people can take ownership of this country, Nigeria, so that the politicians will know that they are just there to manage the resources of Nigeria, but not to lord over the citizens of Nigeria?
Very good question. So in the very few seconds we have left, the key is to first identify what do we want to achieve. So we have to mobilize on a why. Why do we want to organize? Why do we want to come together? And we need to come together. So that's number one. Number two is don't bite more than you can chew, which is don't start a small NGO in Mushin, for example, and now make it your mandate to go Nigeria wide. That is too much too soon. So start locally, right? So mobilize, but mobilize locally. But then as you gain strength, you can then move to the state level, then you can move to the national level. Number three, you must be, and I'm talking about the movement here, the grassroots. The grassroots must put together people who are not interested in other things, right? So your leaders cannot be people who just want to get a stepping stone into the governor's lodge or a stepping stone to go to Aso Rock to get a contract. That's not the people you put in charge. The people you put in charge are the people who will actually go there to fight the fight that you originally agreed to. Those three things need to happen, and they need to happen many times over in every small neighborhood, in every city, in every village. And when you have a lot of them conflagrated, the leaders themselves will now see that they have a lot of work on their hands.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chuks. Eleanor is a performance coach, a public speaker, a community mobilizer or organizer, I think you'll be praying for your state. Which party you come from? What's your local government in Rivers State?
I'm from the Ikwere local government.
You need to pray very well for yourself, because instead of us to be seeing how can make best use of your oil to build Rivers State, make it maybe Texas of this world, it is fight to finish. And we don't know. Maybe you continue to.
I understand.
You continue to pray for every one of them. I equally advise them to that peace is one of the biggest asset that everybody should endeavor to have in his custody. Thank you very much. Very, very regard to the family and to you again. And
thank you.
We'll be continue to disturb you, because we want to see what we can do between now and 2027, so that we should actually take ownership of this country, this lovely country, wonderful country, full of potential, but they now name it that is like the headquarters of poverty. It is we that are supposed to be borrowing some urgent 2K for you people to manage, but the reverse is the case. We can't continue this way.
I agree. But they should begin now. The grassroots movement should start forming now.
All right.
They shouldn't wait till 2020. If they wait till 2027, it's too late. Now is the time to get started.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, sir. Enjoy the rest
Thank
of
you
the
very
day.
much. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, that is a very, very wonderful friend, as usual, from United States of America. Chus is a very, very strong community mobilizer or organizer, and that the reason is you that are listening to us. You must make sure that we take ownership of this country, not in a violent way. Don't be waiting for agege bread, derica of rice, 500k. Then your 4 years you mortgage it. It doesn't work that way. Delayed gratification is the key. Let's see how we can actually, in a peaceful way, do what is right and make Nigeria a better nation. As you know, my name is Joseph.